I'm very excited about today. I'm joined by Jamie Ryan, Mr. Dublin Leather 2025, Mr. Leather Europe 2026, and a self-professed kinkster with more than one fetish in his toolkit. He's here to talk about how kink can help people discover new sides of their sexuality and identity, and he looks absolutely amazing. Oh my God, you look so good. So you're head to toe in leather. You have the leather pants, the leather boots, the leather shirt, the leather tie, your Mr. Leather Europe sash, and your village people
Yes, we call it some weir cap. It's like kind of frames the whole thing, so to say.
It really does, because when you walked in here, you didn't have the hat on. You put the hat on, I was like, oh.
Yeah, I didn't want to scare the public too much. So I'm happy going out in leather like this, but I try to kind of slightly tone it down. I don't want to be too loud in the street. Although people in Dublin are generally very receptive to it, you know. I don't get any problems when I walk around like this, which is, it's nice, you know. It's nice to see that. It's nice to see that we've progressed to the point where we wouldn't make a big deal of this, you know, and we let people wear what they want.
Have you ever walked around Athlone like that?
Well, I'm from Portlaoise, but...
is it a different story down the country than in a big city?
You know, I think you do get more looks because it's definitely a little more out there. And I would say the leather scene itself is very Dublin-centric.
Okay.
There are a few folks outside of Dublin, but the scene tends to be a little quieter out there. So I'd like to think you wouldn't get any trouble, but I think you definitely get a few more stares and whistles and things like this.
Now, this is huge. This is a huge thing. People being into leather, which I never thought of before. I thought my preconception would be it's quite a niche thing. There's only a very few people at it, but that is not the case. No,
and I you know, part of me thinks about this a lot, that we see nowadays it's quite mainstreamed and there's more and more people out in public in leather and all sorts of other gear. I think the best way to think about it was there was always that interest there. It's like most things. There was always that interest there, but things were done more privately or maybe more behind closed doors. The leather scene as we know it only really originated kind of in I would say the 50s and 60s. So the classic story is basically after World War II, there were all these soldiers, some of them gay men, who liked a sort of more masculine presence or were used to the masculine environment of the army. And there were lots of surplus, like leather jackets, Air Force bomber jackets, things like this. So they just started meeting up with each other, and a culture was formed around that. And there's a lot of sort of iconic pop culture that also has a foundation in that. So artists like Tom of Finland, who create these sort of really hyper-masculine looking leather guys. That's just grown over the decades. And I think particularly with the internet, people have just found each other and they've come together en masse. And it's really cool, you know, that there's festivals nowadays. There's thousands of people going to these festivals.
You're just back from Berlin? I'm
just back from Berlin, from an event called Easter Berlin. And in September, there's another event there called Folsom Berlin, which I'm not joking is tens of thousands of people in every leather fetish you could imagine, and it's so beautiful, like coming together in that moment and just getting to express yourself, because that's what it's all about, really, you know. And not just men, I might add.
Oh no!
Well, I'm a gay man. I do want to say we are certainly only one facet of the greater community.
Absolutely. Let's start really simply. What actually is kink?
Yeah, this question always comes up. What's kink? What's fetish? Are they the same thing? Are they different things? So my general interpretation is a kink or a fetish is generally some kind of sexual interest that deviates from what we'd consider the norm. And what kinksters would call the norm is vanilla, which maybe sounds a little derogatory, but we just need a word for it, right? So when you think of vanilla, you just think of the usual way you would have sex. But with kink, you might introduce a piece of gear into it. You might introduce a specific interest in something. So when I think of a fetish, I think of it's a part of your body that you might have a special interest for. So some people might have a foot fetish. I mean, that's a very commonly known thing, right? Mm-hmm. But it can vary so much. A kink can be something so banal and generalized, like maybe someone has a kink for, I don't know, they like being handled a little more roughly.
Dirty talk,
right? Or role playing.
Yep.
And then it can be something really specific. I've heard some crazy specific kinks. I mean, there's a kink for balloons. Some people have a kink for balloons and like the noise it makes when they rub it. And I know friends of mine who have like inflatable rubber suits. So and that's a very specific niche. But then again, with the internet, no matter how wildly specific your kink is, you do find people out there, which is fascinating to me, and it's always fun to hear about this random kink that you think, how
did that happen though?
Yeah.
It's like, what happened in your life to make you get turned on by a balloon? It's bonkers.
I don't know, and I don't even fully understand the psychology of it. Sometimes
there has to have been something that happened in their life or some
I think it's usually a childhood thing. Like maybe there was just something in their childhood, and their brain got wired at the right moment, and it just crisscrossed. And that's how it developed. Like for me, I can't even exactly pinpoint where my interest for leather started. I was exposed, everyone sees the usual films, you see like cowboy films, or there's the film The Wild One, or even pop music videos had a lot of leather going on. Queen, I mean, Freddie Mercury was an out-and-out leatherman. And I think that just organically fell into my life. I just remember as soon as I had an internet connection, and as soon as I realised, what my friends were looking up didn't really interest me, I just kind of organically started looking for hairy men. And I came across this site called Bearbound, which was like hairy men being tied up, and that was all very leather-like. And then I was like, okay, I don't know what this is. I want more of it. And it just kind of snowballed from there,
Okay, so that's maybe when it all started for you.
I think so, yeah.
Okay, and you haven't looked back since.
Yeah.
What I'm interested in, and you need to point at me and give out to me if I kink shame, because some of them are so, like the balloon thing and the animal thing and lactophilia, and there's some that are so really niche and batshit crazy and, bonkers.
I would agree some of them are absolutely crazy.
Bonkers. I find it very hard not to go or yuck someone's yum, which is a terrible thing to do. So just point at me if I do that in this. Can I ask you, from being, as someone being in the kink community, do you get any pleasure from vanilla sex?
Yeah, I mean, I think for a lot of people, I mean, there is still a connection underlying all of those things. So the kink is a lovely extra layer. There are some people who...
An add-on.
Now, I do know some people who absolutely need that kink to get to a point of climax, or get it's so embedded in their psyche that it's hard for them to not get something out of it. Now, I don't typically go looking for vanilla sex myself, and even for me, like, in our culture, in gay culture, we have what are called dark rooms and cruising. So basically spaces where you can anonymously find sex. They don't appeal to me as much as, say, a dungeon space where you can negotiate something with someone. You can act out fantasies that you both have. But underlying all of that, it's more than just the physical activity. It's more than just the piece of gear. It's about the connection underneath. I find kink to be very spiritual in some aspects. It lets you find parts of yourself that you didn't even know existed. It lets you connect with someone in a much more intense way than you would in a traditional vanilla context, right? And I find that really fascinating, that aspect of kink.
I just want to talk about the massive misconception with kink for a second, because I have realised over the last couple of years in the heterosexual normal, world, we're talking about consent quite a bit.
Yes.
But in the fetish community, I mean, consent has always been, you said you negotiate in a dungeon. I mean, consent has always been part of it, right?
Yeah, it has.
To get the safe word, we see it in movies in a fetish scene or whatever, has always been in your community, and yet that's the misconception. I think people would presume that it wasn't, and that's
100%.
What other misconceptions are there about fetish? People are into the fetish community.
That people who have a kink are somehow damaged, or that it's a disorder. That fetish is a deviation that kind of makes you a lesser of a person, or that you have some sort of psychological issue that you're only patching by expressing your kink. We hear terms like daddy issues, for example, and we kind of by saying that you're signifying that there's an issue there. But I would argue that actually, I think kink and fetish is a very integral part of the human experience. And I think, if anything, it's that a lot of people suppress that side of themselves because it can scare them. It's unconventional. It's a little against the grain of society. There is more risk involved. It is a little less comfy. But I think everyone can benefit from exploring that a little more open-mindedly. And part of my role, or why I'm so out as a kinkster, why I'm so public about it, is I want to inspire more people to explore that part of themselves. I think it's a very enriching thing to to see where your interests go, see what that means for you, see what how you connect with people and develop as a person as a result of exploring those things. I think.
Do you think the majority of people would have some sort of kink?
I think
or
so.
fetish?
Yeah, I think so. And I think the more it's been mainstreamed or socially acceptable in all facets of society, at least in our side of the world, I think everyone has something. And
Do you know what mine is?
yeah, go on.
If I come home and my other half is emptying the dishwasher, or if he's cleaning the toilet,
Does that give you a buzz?
it really does. It does. If I see him cleaning or fixing, I'm there. I am there, and I'm pretty sure a lot of women would feel the same. How do you feel, women?
I think I've got a bit of that too with my partner. It's like that. I feel safe.
Take care
I
of
feel
me.
taken care of. Yeah.
He's doing something that I don't have to do. This is lovely. Ireland isn't typically, well, you wouldn't typically think of Ireland as a country that with this big community. How did it all start here?
So it's fairly recent, to be honest.
Okay.
I don't think things really kicked off until the late 90s. And I mean, I was still in school at this point, so I'm just going by accounts. There have been some very integral figures in our society who have kickstarted some of this. So people I know like Tony Walsh, Carl Hayden, and Carl actually just did a talk last night about this, about kink history. And a guy named Joe Harnett. He's an Irish guy from Clane, actually, who was into leather, went off to Chicago for an international Mr. Leather contest. And the stories, he came back, shared all his knowledge. Oh, Michael Byrne is another one. Like, there's a few of these people, and some nights started to kick off. So there were these small little club nights, and it gave people an opportunity to start kind of meeting other people in a safe setting, because not everyone can do this in their own home. Not everyone's in a position where they might be sharing. This is a very private thing. It must have been very daunting back then as well, because we'd only recently, for example, decriminalise homosexuality and decriminalise a lot of things that had created an embedded shame in all parts of Ireland. So it's really from there those events started to spring up, and Nivnock was another event that had started that kind of gave all kinds of kinksters an opportunity to connect. So it took a few brave individuals to say, I want this to be a space where I can share interests, meet other people, and another person would come along and say, oh, that's great, I'm going to build on this with another event.
And would you say it's building and building?
Yeah, like the club that I'm part of, Leathermen of Ireland, we're growing year on year. We're actually celebrating our 6th birthday in May. That started off as a COVID call, a Zoom call, just for leather men and kinksters of all kinds just to get together on a Sunday and basically
how many
survive.
members are we talking?
Oh, I'd say like it must be a good we're about 100 150 contingent if I kind of think about all the extra people, and when we have a weekend event where people come from abroad, and that usually attracts 300-400 people, which
Where
is
do you
amazing.
go?
So our main haunt is a bar called Penny Lane, which is just off Capel Street.
Yeah.
It's a regular bar, gay bar, but they've been very friendly to us and accommodating of us. It is largely a social scene. We don't really have access to the likes of a clubhouse or a BDSM venue. This is a difficulty, as you can imagine, in Ireland, just getting something like that up and running. There do exist some venues, and some of them would be the likes of swingers clubs, private clubs.
You just need to get a big Airbnb.
Yeah, well, that's one of my plans. Actually, I have to eventually get around to doing it. Is finding a big house in the country, renting it for the week, and having a little camp, and just have drinks,
Having
have fun. Yeah, absolutely.
It almost sounds like a part-time job. Like there's a lot to do, There's pageants, there's dressing up, there's connecting with people online, there's a lot going on.
Yeah, well, it's as much as you want to do. Like if you want to just practice this at home privately, and you don't tell anyone about it, that's just as valid as someone like myself traveling around, going around and being. I used to have two separate lives. There was the normal Jamie and the leather Jamie, and now I've just got to a point I'm privileged to do so, where I've just said, you know what, this is me, this is who I am, this is me 24/7, and my higher mission in life is to essentially inspire other people to hop on the ride and get involved.
Well, you definitely inspired people because you started off in a Zoom call, back in COVID, and now you have nearly 100 people.
Yeah, and it's lovely. Like I get messages online from people who are interested in getting involved. People
And
who
all
are
different
starting
kind
off.
of kinks.
All different kind of kinks.
Okay.
And we were called Leathermen of Ireland, but we also have trans men in our group. We have non-binary people. We have some women in our group. We don't really differentiate in that regard, particularly as we're a social group. We think it's important that we all come together. So it's every event we have a social every 2 months. We always see a fresh face or a new face, and that's what we just try to do is say, hey, this is fun. We live life really fun.
Thank God for the internet.
Yeah.
Because before there was the hanky code, wasn't there?
Yeah,
Does that still exist?
Yeah, I actually have in my back pocket. For our viewers, I've got a grey and a black hanky. So the hanky code still exists. To give folks context, the hanky code was one of many symbols in which you could signal to someone what your interests were or who you were, even when it wasn't safe necessarily to be out or to be public as gay or as a kinkster. So other things used to be people would just like put a key in one side of their pocket, or they'd have like a chain hanging on one. It's typically based on the left or right side. These kind of codes. So with hanky code, left means you're passive, right means you're active, and the different colors mean different things. So grey is like light SM, like bondage. Black is like heavy SM, so like things like flogging or more impactful play. There's yellow for water sports.
Yep.
Red for fisting. Blue for fucking, basically. And then there's a whole palette beyond that, and it gets a bit silly.
Is there a vanilla one? Is there a little cream hanky in the back pocket that exists?
I think cream is like rimming.
Oh, is it? Okay, don't get that confused.
So vanilla people don't wear that one. But
that's
fun.
That's interesting that it still exists. I thought it was just something in the 80s or 90s that people would do.
Yeah, well, I think a lot of these leather traditions. Not all of us, but a lot of us like to carry those on. And that's one thing about leather in particular that I find really interesting is this idea that we've established these sorts of codified traditions and that generationally we pass down that knowledge. Now, with each generation of passing down that knowledge, we have to acknowledge, there was problematic sides to that as well. And we try to take those and say, okay, we've learned about these things we had misconceptions about in the past. Now we're moving on and we're being more inclusive while keeping those things that we feel are important. Because that goes back to that spiritual aspect of leather. There is a sort of like tribal nature to it, that you're part of a brotherhood or a fraternity or a family, and that you can share this experience together, and it draws you together. Like I always say, this is something I always say, and I probably say too much, like there's this sort of paradox, right? When we cover ourselves up in leather, we actually open our hearts to each other, and that's why I think there's a big heart in the leather flag. And here I have actually on my sash, this is our flag. And I think it's never explained why there's a heart in it, but that's what I think it is. That's how we connect. So yeah, it's you'll see a lot of that sometimes. You'll see people wearing like a yellow on their leather and they didn't realize, and it's like it can also just be a fashion thing. Like
yes,
as long as you communicate to someone at the end of the day, Tell
me about your partner. You mentioned very briefly there. Are you in a relationship at the moment?
Yeah, I've been in a relationship for the last 9 years. It's been really good. We're very close. He's also a kinkster. So I do a lot of travel this year as Mr. Leather Europe. So we don't always travel together, but we do try to make some of the trips together. In terms of our relationship, I don't like to put too much of a blanket term on it, but we're an open relationship. But I would say, without going maybe too much into detail about it, because I'm sure you talked about it before, an open relationship is not just as simple as, okay, we're going to play with other people and that will make us happier. That takes a lot of trust, maturity and negotiation, and I'm really fortunate to say we are in a mature relationship where we can express our feelings very transparently, and I think it's made us better as a couple.
Well, 9 years later.
Yeah, 9 years later, yeah.
Did you meet him on the scene? How did you have the conversation? How did you figure out that he was a kinkster as well?
Oh, it's funny. I saw him in a bar years ago. It's Street 66, which was called the Front Lounge back then. And I used to go there as a youngster, there was a red velvet couch that I called my kissing couch because that's where I take guys to kiss them. And I was with a friend of mine, and I saw him across the bar, and I thought he looked gorgeous, but I was too afraid to say hi. And I'd kind of tried to look for him online on dating websites and hookup websites, and I think like 4 or 5 years later, I eventually found him, and I sent him a message, and then we met up, and that was about 9 years ago on a fateful December evening. And yeah, we just connected really well. I think it was actually COVID where we really bonded because we were on opposite sides of the county and hadn't seen him for weeks. And I think when I met him after that, I said, okay, you're really a keeper now. So we moved in together, and it's been great ever since.
You must be so proud of all your accolades.
He is, and I'm proud of him too, because behind all of this, lovely, shiny pageantry is a lot of planning, a lot of stress. I just finished 5 weekends in a row traveling. Those are weekends I lose spending time with him because he will only go with me some weekends because he can't use up all those days just on my account. And it's really nice to be back with him, and I'm proud of him for supporting me because by the time I've finished Mr. Leather Europe, it'll have been basically 2 years of doing this.
Does he empty the dishwasher?
Oh, yes. And I get given out to a lot. He's the practical one. I'm the dreamer. I'm the one who imagines the house repainted, and he's the one who eventually
does it.
Look, it's time to repaint the house.
If someone is listening and just thinking, I'm curious, but I've no idea where to start, what would your advice be?
My advice would be to look up podcasts, educational resources, try to find a local club. So whether that's a venue or a social club. So for example, for me, it was Leathermen of Ireland. For someone else, it might be something like Nivnock. Munches are a really good thing to go to. So for those who don't know, a munch is basically a social meeting, typically before a BDSM event. You don't wear any gear. You don't tell people outside that you're kinksters. It's a safe place to meet people in regular old clothes in a regular old venue. That's a really nice place to start. And just be safe.
I love how you call it munchers.
Munch, yeah. I think it originally came from the original Munch was in a hamburger joint in the States, so they were munching on hamburgers. But one thing I will add is just be safe.
Yes.
Vet people when you can. So that's why joining a club can be really important. So when you meet people, I find it's helpful if someone can vouch for them. Because what we do is we are risk aware. We're informed when we practice any kind of BDSM or kink. That's not to say that you can completely avoid risk, and you don't know, especially when you don't know who you're meeting. But have someone vouch for that person. Tell someone where you're going. Preferably start in a public space if you can, because you have a lot of safety in that. And as you gain confidence, then the world is your oyster.
That's really good advice. Really good advice. What about privacy? If somebody wants to do it privately, I mean, is that even possible?
Yeah, well, there are people who are anonymous. So there's a social network called FetLife, and a lot of users of FetLife won't show their faces, particularly when they have jobs where they have a public persona and a private persona. I wouldn't want anyone to think just because I'm dressed up like this and I'm talking in public that this is the expectation or standard. You can absolutely have a fulfilling kink life. You can have a fulfilling kink life with just your partner. You don't necessarily have to be out in public. You can explore that together. It's completely valid as well. But privacy is a big thing. I have a privilege in that I can be out like this. My employer accepts it. Our families accept it. Like, it's weird getting texts from your mother-in-law congratulating you for your contest,
That's so cute.
But they're all good with it, and that is a very privileged position to be in.
That is a privilege. Do you remember the first time you mentioned it to your family, or them finding out about it?
I think it was when I went for the title contest and I won it, because at that point it was going out in the news. If you looked up my name, like, that was the first result. So I think I can't remember the exact moment. I think they kind of already knew that there was something going on with me and with my partner. And yeah, I think it was a nice point to go, look, I won this important thing. Yes, it's sex, but also it's social.
You're like,
and,
yay! Let's get a cake.
They've always been really cool with it. Yeah, both of our
cool.
families have always been, again, really lucky. Not the case with every family, but we can do that, and it's I'm very blessed for that.
Well, listen, thank you so much. You're an absolute tonic and a joy to speak to. Jamie, thank you so much. I'm Jennifer Zamperelli, and thank you for listening to Just Between Us. If you've enjoyed Just Between Us, learned something new, had a laugh or maybe both, then go on, just leave us a review. You'll find us on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.